Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. All right, I apologize. I was just paused right there for a second. I was looking over some chats here. Man, some of you guys are absolute knuckleheads in the Discord. Absolute knuckleheads. Anyways, guys, we got a lot to cover. Okay, today is going to be one heck of a news day. There's just so much to cover. It's going to be kind of a mishmash of stuff, guys. To be honest, I'm going to be hopping all over the place. I try to line it up so we'd have like kind of like a broad market update. Then we get into individuals, companies and stocks. We had earnings for Apple, and then I'd line that up with, what's happening in the metals market. But man, there's so much going on for every sector, crypto, metals, commodities, and just a broader stock market. So I'm just going to wing it today. All right. I'm just going to have to wing it because, again, there's just really a whole lot going on. So just real quick in the chat. So I see we have Padre who joined a little bit earlier. We have Victor Sank. Hey, welcome. All right. Let's see. Victor Sank says, oh boy, what a day. And today was definitely one of those days for sure. Let's see what else we got. So we have Comic Book. Hey, welcome and always a pleasure to have you over here. So just real quick before we even get started, I'd be happy to touch on this real briefly. I'd be interested on your thoughts on MSFW, Microsoft's weekly pay from Roundhill, as well as one of the other holdings I've been buying on the dips is basically Uber or UBEW. All right. So real quick, I mean, my thoughts at a very, very high level. I don't know much about Uber. Okay. I'm going to just be honest. I know they're doing some deals out there, especially with NVIDIA. And I think they're also working with Tesla for robo taxis. Right. So there could be something there, right? The underlier actually has, a path forward. So, in terms of Uber, that's as far as I know. Whether it's a good stock or not, I really don't know too much about Uber other than those things that I kind of just see in passing. It's not really a company I cover, to be honest. For Microsoft, I mean, who doesn't know Microsoft, right? And they just had earnings. I thought they did pretty well on earnings. They missed just by a little bit, and the market seemed to just want an excuse to sell off. We're going to be covering that here later in the stream. But yeah, Microsoft is the juggernaut in the space. I mean, they are one of the biggest, hyperscalers out there, very technology software focused. They have their data center. They have their software subscription packages, Microsoft O365. They have several revenue streams. Microsoft itself is a great, great company. But as far as like the weekly pay stuff right now, I mean, again, it's 120% leverage, upside, downside, doesn't matter. You're going to get cut both ways. So you just have to keep that in mind whenever you're looking at these Roundhill weekly pay ETFs. Yes, the dopamine hit of getting paid every single week is nice. However, when we have these dramatic drawdowns like we had with Microsoft today, where it dropped to almost 14%, I think, it makes you stop to question things a little bit or be a little more careful in your picks. So just something to think about. All right. We have the real evilest duck. All right. We have the real evilest one. Welcome as always. So we're thinking the market is going up tomorrow with no government shutdown. I will be covering that here very shortly. But yeah, no government shutdown as it is at the moment. So picked up some Microsoft this morning. That's a no-brainer stock, says Oak Oak Unathletic. There we go. Okay. All right, guys. Well, as always, I do appreciate you guys joining me for this stream. Today, again, like I mentioned earlier, we got a lot to go over. It's going to be a mishmash of stuff. And as always, I'll try to keep it under an hour to give you guys more or less the more important news. All right. And then probably towards the end, we'll chop it up. All right. I will do my best to read the comments as we move forward so I can address things and keep up with it. But again, guys, I can't look at the screen, keep one eyeball on the screen, have my train of thought, and then also be looking at the chat. All right. But here we go. Okay, here we go. First up, and you guys can't even see this screen. See, I'm already off to a bad start. Okay, first up, guys, this is what so far it feels like. All right. This is what it feels like this week. All right. And especially this month. This month has been absolutely crazy. So I just wanted to share that with you guys. I mean, we got so much crap going on in the broader world and the broader markets. It just seems like every day is a twist and a turn. When you think you're doing right, when you think you're doing well, we have these crazy pullbacks like we just saw in the commodities market, right? A lot of miners got sold off all because of a news article, which we'll be covering. All right, so for the S&P 500, we are up for the, or actually we are up, actually down, excuse me. We are down for the day, 13 basis points. For the week, we are still in the green by 89 basis points, very close. Again, we had that really dramatic drop off. Again, Federal Reserve, right? We talked about this yesterday. We said that like the market looked good, but usually right after the Federal Reserve speaks, there's usually some type of a sell-off, and this was no different. Okay, it usually takes about a day or so for the market to digest things, and then the market sells off. But we also had earnings from three major companies yesterday, Microsoft being one of them, Meta being the other, and definitely Microsoft was the one that got hit the hardest. All right, so we will cover all of that here shortly. And for gold, okay, gold had a decent kind of a pullback. We saw it drop about 7%. That was a pretty big drop. All right. So if you guys were able to get in at the low, congratulations. Me personally, I have not added to anything. As a matter of fact, I think I was asleep during this time. Yeah, about 10:45, 10:50. I was about asleep. And then, I woke up around, I think 2:30 in the morning, checked my brokerage account, and I was like, oh, and I was just like, all right, well, we'll have something to talk about. But over the last 5 days, up close to about 10%. All right, 9.16% year to date, still the best performing asset. All right, for silver, also a pretty mean sell-off. And we're going to be covering silver here in just a second because there is a lot of stuff going on with silver that I think people, you guys, the general audience, should absolutely know and be following, because this is really crazy what's happening in this market. All right, down 10%, silver was. All right. And again, year to date, one of the best performing assets, up 60%. All right. So will this trend continue? Will the pump continue? For our beleaguered, beat down Bitcoin. Okay. Bitcoin not doing so hot. We're actually in the red now. We are in the red year to date, negative 3.47%. All right. We actually broke, or actually we were trending down to about 83,000. And again, I have nothing to base this off. I'm not a technical analyst, but as far as I can tell, if we were to break that trend of about 83,000 or fall below it to like maybe the 80, then we're definitely heading for lows. We're heading for lower lows. We're probably going to end up in the $72,000 to $75,000 a coin range. So something to keep your eyes on, okay? Especially if you want to buy the dip, all right? If you're interested in Bitcoin, you believe in Bitcoin, et cetera, et cetera. All right, so let me just quickly check the chat because again, I'm going to try to keep up with the chat as you guys are going on. So let's see what we have here. So we have from MJ Bowhunter, picked up some quad U commons today. So some of the common stocks. So U, if I'm not mistaken, is a nuclear mining company. So it's a company I've honestly have on my watch list along with a couple others. So I might try to pick up some. I haven't really initiated any positions in these, any meaningful positions. I'm still a tourist. I'm just kind of like looking around, still trying to figure out, or get my footing in this space, right? I don't want to just open positions for the sake of opening them. I want to try and build like a real respectable like position in it. And I think really right now was probably a good opportunity. We saw the miners sell off like crazy. All of them across the board. We saw miners sell off. Let's see. All right. So from Shaz, can you talk about SoFi when you get the chance, if they have earnings at 7 a.m.? I will try to. All right. I will try to in tomorrow's show. All right. Let's see. Scrolling through here. All right. So I'm going to keep going. All right, guys, because again, I don't want to get too far off topic and I want to be respectful of your guys' time. We had some news come out. You guys remember this, right? I covered this, right? I said, hey, Roundhill is coming out with their, 4X, triple Q and 4X SPY ETFs. Okay, well, we had some news drop. Shout out to Bankshot Bobo from the Discord. He's in a couple other Discords as well. But he found this, and this was a rather very probably unsurprising, right? This is the SEC has been cracking down on these leveraged investments. So we'll just take a quick look, all right, and then we'll move on. Again, we have a whole lot more stock market news to cover, but this is coming from the SEC, right? And this is going directly to Roundhill, and they're basically saying that they're a little concerned about their ETFs, right? The ETFs over 200%. So, you know, they put in what they're worried about. So we'll see what Roundhill does to actually address this issue. Again, this is a lot of legal jargon, but, you know, again, it's the SEC, you know, keeping an eye on the ball, especially when it comes to these leveraged funds. Again, not too long ago, they put a pause on a ton of fund managers, yieldmax, Granite Shares, Roundhill, just everybody. They're putting a stop on everybody because everyone's coming out with these leveraged ETFs, right? They're just coming out with these leveraged ETFs, which could be extremely dangerous for, you know, investors who don't know what they're doing, right? And of course, on YouTube, everyone looks like a pro in a bull market. Everyone's buying all this stuff, and then of course people are following those trades and then getting wrecked later, right? Not fully understanding the investment. So again, just a word of caution for everybody out there. Just make sure that you understand what you're investing into, especially when it comes to the leverage fund. So we were talking about the Roundhill stuff earlier. Again, a lot of people right now, the narrative, the sentiment out there is, oh, Roundhill sucks, right? Of course it does, because we're heading down for newer lows. All right. And of course they suck, right? Nav erosion, blah, 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 right? Again, it's probably from people who did not fully understand what they were investing into. They've probably watched content where it just shows it keep going up and to the right and how much distributions were getting pumped out. And then when, you know, a decline happens, you know, people's sentiment obviously changes, right? This is investor psychology just 101. This is retail investor psychology 101. It can be a little infuriating just because you see it so much, right? Anyways, let me get off my high horse. The biggest news, I think, especially for, you know, just people investing into Robinhood, this was probably one of the biggest news developments for Robinhood. Okay, so last year, Donald Trump, you know, he was talking about the Trump accounts, and, you know, he's trying to give basically newborn children, you know, access to a brokerage account where, you know, they'll just deposit $1,000. And you had a couple companies come out and say that, hey, for workers, for their employees who have children and will have these Trump accounts, they're also going to add an additional $1,000, you know, for each of these accounts, right? Or add some type of money, right? Big deal. That's a lot of inflows into equities, a lot of inflows into the passive indexes like the S&P 500. So the reason why this news is huge is because the U.S. government is eyeing Robinhood to be the, you know, oversight of the Trump account program, right? So that could be a ton of business for Robinhood, a lot of business for Robinhood. So let's cover it real quickly. So Robinhood Markets is preparing internally for a possible trustee role as the U.S. federal government considers tapping the fintech company to help oversee new Trump accounts for children, according to the media report on Thursday. All right. And we saw that Robinhood just had a really, really crazy bump up. All right. If you guys haven't checked Robinhood, I believe last time I just saw like a big green candle up and to the right. So again, Robinhood, this is extremely bullish news for them, because they're going to have all these passive accounts, right? They're going to have all these passive accounts, all these inflows coming into the Robinhood brokerage account. So this is bullish for Robinhood. All right. So that was pretty much it. You know, that was the big news, at least for Robinhood. And again, just going over kind of what it was, you know, in the One Big Beautiful Bill, it was the 538 Trump accounts program, which was created as the Invest America initiative. And it's basically giving a tax advantage IRA designed specifically for children, seeded with a $1,000 federal contribution for children between 2025 and 2028. So again, really, really huge news. I'm definitely bullish on Robinhood. I can see them, you know, again, continuing to grow, at least well into the future. I think they'll be not just, you know, the brokerage account with the bad rep, you know, especially with the whole, you know, way back then it was, you know, they gamified investing, you know, so it was attracting a very young crowd. But also they had the whole GameStop fiasco. But, you know, I think, again, Robinhood's heading in a direction where they're going to be an all-in-one, you know, source for everything, banking, credit cards, investing. They have their own, what do they call it? Chat, help me out. But it's basically Robinhood's doing the investing for you, robo advising, right? They have a robo advisor. They're also offering mortgages. We saw yesterday that they're, you know, allowing accounts to come in, you know, for crypto. They're going to match you on this and that. And now they're adding tax and trustee or tax and estate planning onto their platform. Like this is crazy. Robinhood is becoming the all-in-one financial service tech hub. Like it is really, really cool to see this for Robinhood. So excited. Also, not too long ago, they had their Robinhood event where they were broadcasting or showcasing, you know, some of the updates that are coming to Robinhood, you know, especially with their trading platform, you know, Robinhood Legends. They just added shorting to the platform. So again, Robinhood is expanding. It's getting better. It's getting bigger. And, you know, I am bullish on the stock, me personally. I do not hold the common shares, though. Got to be honest there. I don't hold the common shares. What I do own is the roundhill, you know, 1.2x leverage position HOOW. So I do have a position on that. All right. So wanted to cover that. This was breaking news. All right. And we have more breaking news. All right. Trump, we'll cover that in a second. But Trump backs Senate government funding deal that includes DHS extension. All right. I probably need to update this and refresh it because it's probably different now. So basically, the net of this is that the government is going to remain open. All right. So no government shutdown, which is a big deal. You know, so even if it did shut down, the stock market probably wouldn't care. But in this case, it is still a big deal. So the government's not going to shut down. There is funding. And last I read, unless they updated it, they're going to fund all departments with the exception of DHS. DHS is going to come in a different, you know, at a different time. They'll fight that out, you know, in Congress, especially the funding, because that's really what was stopping the bill from getting passed in the Senate. So it looks like everything is good to go. So we won't have a government shutdown come, you know, Saturday morning, you know, 12:01 a.m. So that is awesome news. We also have, let's see, speaking of Trump, because there was a lot of news for Trump. Oh, this is everywhere. Hold up, guys. There we go. Let's see. Okay. So let's listen in on this. This is President Trump saying he's going to announce the new Fed chair pick tomorrow. So right now we had a couple people in the running. You know, we spoke about it on the last stream. We have Kevin Warsh, and we had like Kevin Hassett is pretty much out of the running. And we had Rick Reeder, who is a BlackRock exec. And I forget who the third person is. It's eluding me right now at this moment.
Announcing your Fed chair pick next week.
Tomorrow morning.
Tomorrow morning.
Oh.
And do you know who you picked?
Tomorrow I do.
Wait,
Otherwise, I'll have to go to work very quickly. No, I'll be announcing the Fed chair tomorrow morning.
Mr. President, a lot has happened this month. How do you think January?
Announcing your Fed chair pick next
Yep.
week.
So that's pretty much it. I just wanted to share that because again, that is big news. That's going to affect the market. Definitely, who he announces or who he says he's going to nominate is going to be a big deal. Again, we talked about it. It could be Rick Reeder. It's probably one of the easiest ones. He's not in the system. You know, he's not a part of, you know, the government at all. You have Christopher Waller, who was the other one I was thinking about. And you have Kevin Warsh. They're both already serving in some capacity for the Fed, right? So they're already within the system. So if you're talking about keeping an independent Fed, bringing an outsider in, that could be, you know, that could be good. Again, we'll find out tomorrow. We'll find out more. All right. I just want to check the chat real quick and make sure I'm giving you guys enough attention over here. Let's see. I got to figure out where I left off here. So Oak, unathletic. I'm in the early stage type portfolio you described. My first goal is basically get to 100K in a relatively stable way with ETFs, etc. But Microsoft damn near, I call that ETF as well. It's right in. Nice. I think that's a great goal. You know, again, just kind of getting off topic here, but I think that is a great goal to achieve. It's a huge milestone getting that first 100K in a portfolio. It's not a goal that many can even achieve, right? You have to do a lot to get there. Aside from just, you know, transferring money into brokerage and buying stock, right? There's so much more that goes into it. You know, personal finance skills, you know, budgeting, et cetera. You know, when you get a pay raise, you know, kind of controlling that emotion to go buy more junk and crap, you know, and instead buying more assets. Again, those that are buying assets right now in this environment are going to be the ones that are going to have better options later in life, because it's just getting ridiculous out there, especially with all the Fed, or especially with all the money printing that the U.S. government is doing. So that is awesome to hear. Definitely, you know, keep us updated if you reach that 100K. All right. So we have, let's see, from Shaz, meeting ended. Next time I'll sell CSPs or cash secure puts the next day on or after the meeting. From Victor Senk, he says, MSTR has dropped so much. I had to buy some with all the spare money I had. I hope you're buying the common stock, man. I am so tempted to pick up MSTR common stock. I really am. I don't know if it's going to hit, down to the $50 level or even the $75 level. Some people are calling for MSTR 50. I have no idea, but again, I'm just super bullish on the stock. I'm super bullish on the company. I'm not going to get shaken out. I'm just not going to sell the MSTW that I do own. I refuse to sell. Let's see. Let's see. Not copper. Copper went up. Yep, we covered that. Okay. All right, let's move on. All right, guys. So appreciate you guys. We're actually zooming through the news real fast. So we'll probably get to chilling probably a little sooner than expected. Actually, did I skip something? I did skip a couple things here. Let's see. All right, that was Robinhood. We got the government shutdown being taken care of. Let's talk about Apple. So Apple just did their earnings and they actually did very well. Again, I don't really follow Apple as much, but they are part of the Mag 7. So it is important to actually understand what they're doing because they play a pretty big role in the Mag 7. Right? Apple shares edged higher during early post-market trading on Thursday after releasing its first quarter fiscal 2026 financial results that were driven by record-breaking iPhone sales. All right. For the quarter ending December 31st, Apple reported earnings per share of $2.84 versus the consensus estimate of $2.67. Revenue for the quarter increased 15.7%. What is going on with my mouse today? Increased 15.7%, a total of $143 billion, which was more than the $138 billion estimate. Apple reported double-digit revenue growth across multiple business segments. Product revenue increased 16% to $107 billion, which was led by iPhone revenue surging 23% to $85 billion. Services revenue climbed 16% year over year to $30 billion. So all good numbers. They hit all good metrics, and that is really, really good for Apple. We saw the share price increase or have a nice little spike. Apple also received a bump from China with sales growing by 38% year over year to $25 billion. The Americas led all regions with 11% revenue growth. All right, so really good for any Apple stockholders out there. Again, I don't hold any of the common shares. I don't hold anything related to Apple. I think if anything, in my personal opinion, Apple would probably be the first of the Mag 7 to lose any relevancy. They are sitting on a ton of cash. I hate to say it that way, but I just don't see what is so revolutionary about Apple and their products. I'm kind of a bear when it comes to Apple. I don't own Apple products. I'm not in their ecosystem whatsoever. There are a lot of people that love Apple, and there's a lot of people that have been Apple shareholders for a very long time. They've been very happy with the company. All right, I just don't see how much more innovative a phone or their software can really get. The Mac is the Mac. It's nice. It's beautiful. But it's not like revolutionary. It's not something that Dell doesn't have or that HP doesn't have. And then when we come to the iPhones, usually they're lagging in the hardware department compared to their competitors like a Samsung. So I don't know again, they have a diehard user base, a diehard fan base. Maybe that's what's propping them up. When I saw one of their presentations, they had like an Apple stand for like $2,000. It did not come included with the Apple monitor. You had to buy that separately. So again, I was looking at that and I'm just like, what the hell is that? Like, why would I buy Apple products if I have to buy a freaking $1,000 stand to hold up my $3,000 computer screen, right? And on top of that, and I'm going on a rant here. Just on top of that, again, their Apple products, their phone, their watches, etc. I just can't see it. They did basically outsource Siri to Gemini now, so now Gemini will pretty much take the reins. I think that was a good sign. Apple has also been building out data center. They're also investing in data center and training, that kind of stuff. So we'll see if they can keep up with all the other hyperscalers that are going crazy or all the other companies. They're not a hyperscaler. I get that. but if they're going to keep up with the rest of I guess the Mag 7. So that's just my case. All right. I'm sure people have a difference of opinion. It's just my own personal take. All right. But iPhone has had its best quarter ever, driven by unprecedented demand with all-time records across every geographic segment, and services also achieved an all-time revenue record, up 14% from a year ago, said Apple CEO Tim Cook. We're also excited to announce that our installed base now has more than 2.5 billion active devices, which is a testament to the incredible customer satisfaction for the very best products and services in the world. All right. So if you're an Apple shareholder, I'm sure you're doing very well and you're very, very happy. All right. So let's move on. All right. So SanDisk, I think I saw it in the chat that SanDisk was popping up. So we do have a little bit of news about SanDisk because they did report earnings. And again, SanDisk is one of those companies, well, most of the semiconductor type of companies, memory companies, et cetera, gives us kind of just indicators into this, AI bull case, right? AI thesis, where the AI, if there is an AI bubble, et cetera, right? It's a good indicator. And SanDisk proves that everything is going well for AI. There's still a lot of demand. All right, so SanDisk shares shot up more than 10% during early post-market trading on Thursday after the company reported its second quarter fiscal 2026 financial results. On a segment basis, data center revenue surged 64% quarter over quarter to $440 million. All right, edge revenue increased 21% to $1.678 billion, and consumer end devices climbed 39% to $907 million. The company also expects revenue to grow even stronger, ranging from $4.4 billion to $4.8 billion. This quarter's performance underscores their agility in capitalizing on better product mix, accelerating enterprise SSD deployments, solid state drives for those who are not familiar, memory, all right, memory hard drives, that type of stuff, and strengthening market demand dynamics, all at a time when the critical role that our products play in powering AI and the world's technology is being recognized, said SanDisk CEO David Goekler. I'm pretty sure I butchered that. Our structural reset to align supply with attractive sustained demand positions us to drive disciplined growth and deliver industry-leading financial performance. In case you guys didn't know, in case we have people who are just joining us, SanDisk had I think a 1,200% run-up in their stock price. Let me pull that up real fast. SanDisk stock. So you have SanDisk, you have Micron. Oh, it's actually almost 1,400%. Holy hell. Okay, so SanDisk is up over the past year 1,400%. 1,400%. That is crazy. Anyways, so SanDisk, Micron, SK Hynix, these are memory. You also have Western Digital out there, but I don't think Western Digital stock is even close to this. But they also reported earnings, but it's not a stock that I cover, so I didn't really want to talk about them. But again, data center demand is still there, right? This is what is powering AI, the data center, and then you get into the meat and potatoes of what goes into a data center. You're going to have the semiconductors, you're going to have the memory, you're going to have the hard drives, you're going to have the solid state drives, the servers, the other people. You're going to have Cisco switches in there. You're going to have Dell servers in there, NVIDIA GPUs, SMCI, Supermicro hardware. It's just a bunch of stuff that goes into a data center. And then, of course, you can go lower than that. You got power. You also have all the metal that's going to take to power all that stuff, right? So again, it is a pretty big deal, and I wanted to show you guys what an actual data center build out kind of looks like. So this is from Applied Materials, yeah, or Applied Digital. So that's a data center. That's a single data center, and this is Polaris Forge 1-2, and they're going to show 1-3. -3. They're building it out now. absolutely incredible. All right, enough of that from Applied Digital. So again, you guys can see that like building a data center is a pretty damn big deal. And the United States is focused on building out these data centers. They're incentivizing states, they're incentivizing companies. I mean, the demand is there. So every time we hear about the AI bubble happening or circular financing gonna bubble popping, I mean, do your own due diligence, do your own research, of course. But whenever it comes to that, I just kind of I'll listen to it, but I will probably most likely ignore it. Obviously, the stock prices are not reflecting. There's a lot of re-rating going on, especially for companies in the AI space. You know, you have Palantir that's been taking a massive beating. They just have been trending down. And it doesn't even look like they're going to be recovering anytime soon. It seems like a lot of the money is rotating towards commodities, you know, towards metals, gold, silver. Copper is probably going to be in the limelight in the not too distant future. All right, so that is a good segue to get into metals. All right, so let's listen in on a gold, silver, copper reach new highs amid a record rally. All right, so let's listen in on this.
The price action in precious metals. We've been getting questions about this all morning long. Gold, silver, copper, all touching record highs today, but also seeing some big volatility this morning. Gold and silver are on pace for their best month in more than 45 years, by the way. Maybe Pippa Stevens can explain what's going on here, Pippa.
Hey, Kelly. So gold is at a new high after posting its 9th record close yesterday, and silver crossed above that 120 level before pulling back a little bit here. Now, amid this retail craze, GLD and SLV now among the top 10 most traded names. That's according to NASDAQ's retail activity tracker. Yesterday, SLV was the 3rd most traded name, just behind Tesla and nvda. You can see it really stands out amid all of these tech names otherwise. But today's big talker is really copper, because earlier in the day, LME prices were up almost 12%, which would have triggered a limit up. That is something that has never happened before. And the magnitude of this move has been really astounding. If we go back, the run really began at the end of September, and prices are up 30% since. We first crossed above that $12,000 level on December 23rd, then $13,000 on January 5th, and then today we did get up to $14K on an intraday basis. Now, Albert McKenzie from Benchmark Mineral Intelligence told me it is really hard to describe to someone outside of this market just how baffling this move is. Copper is usually pretty stable. It is not a tech stack that can swing 10% in a day. And so a move like this is almost unheard of. He added that since this uptrend began back in September, basically nothing has changed on the fundamental side. So we could see a little bit of a decline going forward here, Kelly.
Come on, Ova. I think these are the questions on everyone's minds. They want to know, are metals prices soaring because the dollar is imploding? Are they soaring because there's been a big change in demand by key players like central banks, or because there's a shortage in all these big picture reasons, or are they flying because there's just a lot of speculators in the market now?
I think it started with people thinking about the dollar and maybe thinking about that debasement trade, and then geopolitical tensions and the kind of quest for hard assets. But then it starts to feed on itself and really becomes this momentum trade. And so it started with gold and silver, and copper was kind of left out of it a little bit. And then today, something has happened. I mean, we saw a lot of activity overnight, particularly in Asian markets on the LME. That's when that price was up 11%. But copper just does not move like this. I mean, you can see something like that in a silver market, which is a little bit smaller. But copper has been, Dr. Copper, it's not the most exciting trade usually.
And I was
There's going to be some really interesting things happening very soon with copper. Again, this is just observations, guys. But copper is probably going to have a run up. There's a lot of chatter on X that I see. I really think, and I have a copper miners position. I don't own copper, the actual like spot price ETF or anything like that. And the whole reason is, and we're about to talk about it, the whole reason is because of, let's see, what is this right here? Okay, we already skipped that. We'll skip that. Let's see, where is it? Yeah, it's because of stuff like this. All right, it's because of stuff like this. So let's get into this. So this is from the Kobesi letter. Okay, COMEX silver inventories are falling. Pay attention to this. Silver inventories in COMEX warehouses have fallen 34 million ounces from their high to 415 million ounces. All right. The lowest since March of 2025. The stockpile has dropped 117 million ounces, or negative 22% since September's peak. Falling silver inventories indicate strong physical demand as short sellers struggle to find actual metal to deliver against their futures contracts. When these traders cannot find enough physical silver to buy, they have to pay higher prices demanded by the sellers. This pushes silver prices even higher, which then forces more traders to buy to avoid losses, tightening the market conditions even further. Okay, so we know that silver is becoming even more harder to get. It's becoming more expensive to get. Okay, so also look at this. This is from Silver Trade. All right, breaking news. A major government mint is shutting down silver sales in the next 24 hours. This came out earlier today. We are not at liberty to disclose the mint by request, as it has not yet been publicly disclosed, but a major supply side shock is about to hit the silver market. So is this that short squeeze that, you know, we've all been hearing about for silver? Is that going to happen? Is this just going to keep sending silver up and to the right, as we have seen, you know, over this past year? Is this just going to keep on climbing higher? It seems very likely. The probability is very high that silver is just going to continue climbing. All right. So again, guys, a lot of stuff happening out there. What's up, Retire on Dividends? Welcome. So pay attention, guys. Like, if you guys are not getting exposure to metals, I would, you know, probably highly recommend you at least, you know, consider it. I'm not telling you what to buy. I'm not telling you which ETFs to look at. You know, there's plenty of them. If you're the high yielders, the high yield income type of people, you know, you can look at Kurv, you can look at Sprott, you can look at iShares. There's just a ton of them out there. And there's like, metal is going to be extremely interesting this year. It was already interesting last year. It's going to be even more interesting this year, I think, you know, again, just from an observation point of view. What else we got? So we got to close this out. Definitely think that this is right here is kind of worrisome. Again, we've talked about the manipulation in the markets, that there's not enough silver, yet paper trading on silver is continuing like nothing is wrong. And there's been some big things in the markets. You know, you had China that was basically cutting off some of these futures traders to the silver market, because it was driving the price up way too much. And currently there's a premium between, I guess, US silver, and correct me if I'm wrong, Evil Duck, or Padre. There's a premium from the United States to China, and the United States is lower. So there's a premium out there because Chinese silver is being sold much higher. So a lot of interesting things happening. We also have, which we'll cover this right now. So we already kind of covered gold, gold and silver and higher, sudden midday sell-off. We kind of all felt that. So we'll just close that out. This right here. All right. This right here is the article that sent a lot of the mineral miner stocks down by a lot. Okay. We're talking 10, 15% in a single day. This was the article that was dropped. There was a lot of, backlash from some of these actual companies, the miners that were impacted by this article. Basically, I'm going to summarize this for you guys. There was a worry out there about the price floor that was, sort of promised by the Trump administration. Okay, so real quick, we'll just cover what a price floor is. All right. Because, we all can learn together, and I'm still learning as I'm going. So a price floor is a government or group imposed limit preventing the price of a good, service, commodity. In this case, it could be any of the metals that are out there from falling below a certain level. All right. To be effective binding, it must be set above the market equilibrium price, creating a surplus because the quantity supply exceeds the quantity demanded. All right. So this article right here came out, and it was basically saying that the Trump administration is stepping back from plans to guarantee a minimum price for U.S. critical minerals projects, a tacit acknowledgement of a lack of congressional funding and the complexity of setting market pricing. All right. The shift, which comes as the U.S. Senate committee reviews the price floor extended to MP materials, that deal happened last year, marks a reversal from commitments made to industry and could set Washington apart from the G7 partners discussing some form of joint price support or related measures to bolster production of critical minerals used in electric vehicles, semiconductors, defense systems, consumer electronics. Let's see. We'll skip this piece. All right. So U.S. listed shares of miners producing critical minerals fell between 3 and 8% in pre-market trading on Thursday. They actually fell much, much lower. And the Energy Department told Reuters in a statement that after the story was published, that the article was false and relies on unnamed sources that are either misinformed or deliberately misleading. Okay. We've seen this so many times out there, especially, you know, in the tech sector. Again, the AI bear case, right? The AI bubble popping, the AI data center bubble popping. We saw that all last year, where these news stories will just come out of nowhere. The media will run with it and it'll scare investors out, right? Investors will rotate out. We saw that with the DeepSeek scare. So this is why it's really important to have conviction in your picks, conviction in your holdings, so you're not scared out as easy, right? You understand at least what you're investing in. And that's just my point about this. You know, the media can really sway investor sentiment. We saw that with that Deutsche Bank, comment by the analyst saying that, you know, Europe is basically going to dump U.S. treasuries, right? And the market just reacted very negatively to that. We had to have Scott Bessent come on mic at the Davos conference and basically say that Deutsche Bank reached out to him and said, hey, that was just one analyst. We don't side with him. You can ignore it. It was just noise, right? Don't be a noise. Anyways, the statement did not elaborate on what the errors the department said it had found. The department did not immediately respond to a request. MP Materials did not respond to Reuters' emailed request for comment. So some of them were kind of like just dodging it. Today, Reuters report is inaccurate, misleading, and this is coming from MP, and inconsistent with the facts. It follows a pattern of speculative and misleading reporting that has repeatedly mischaracterized government policy and caused unnecessary confusion in the marketplace. All right. So again, that was a real big deal. The U.S. is still supporting the development of an ex-China critical mineral supply chain. All right. They may just use other methods. We keep talking about how the United States is trying to wean itself off the supply chain that China has. China has that grip on that supply chain for rare earths, you know, critical minerals, etc. So again, that was the reason why miners had a pretty decent sell-off this last day. And there was actually UAMI, or United States Antimony Corp, that came out with a statement on X. And there was several other of these companies that came out with similar statements. All right. But UAMI said basically yesterday's Reuters article is inaccurate, misleading, and inconsistent with the facts, et cetera. You know, we already just kind of discussed all of this. Any suggestion that the federal support for domestic antimony supply has weakened is simply incorrect. Antimony remains a designated critical mineral for the U.S. national security, and U.S. Antimony is the only producer of finished antimony products in the Western Hemisphere. Something to consider if you guys want exposure to that metal. There is no alternative domestic or regional source capable of supplying this material at scale. All right. We remain fully aligned with our government partners and focus on executing the mission, securing a reliable domestic antimony supply chain for defense infrastructure, advanced manufacturing. Okay. So yeah, the net of this is, you know, this article was kind of misleading. It obviously spooked the market, and they weren't including all of the facts, right? And the whole idea of this price floor plan that, you know, the Trump administration is moving or kind of moving away from or retracting, that appears at this time to be probably false. All right. So there was a closed door meeting this month hosted by Washington think tank. Two senior Trump officials told U.S. mineral executives at that meeting that their projects would need to prove their financial independence without government price support. Okay. So that is very important. We're not propping, or the U.S. government is not propping these companies up. I know, you know, the government's taking a lot of stakes in these companies, but again, you know, they're not propping them up and paying them just to stay alive, right? These companies, these miners actually have to produce. They actually have to show a profit. They actually have to mine the stuff. Okay. We're not here to prop you guys up, said Audrey Robertson, Assistant Secretary of the U.S. Department of Energy and head of its Office of Critical Minerals and Energy Innovation, told the executives, according to this account, don't come to us expecting that. So again, it seems Reuters taking some heat for the article being labeled as basically misinformation or not, you know, giving a full account of really what's going on. So that would explain kind of why the sell-off happened and why a lot of these miners were impacted. All right, so let's take a look. So we have tradesman Bitcoin below 8,200. We're probably going to 72,000. We're probably going to 72,000 to 75. That's my guess. You know, we talked about that, that if Bitcoin was to fall below that, it's going to go lower. At least that's what I'm thinking. So I'll probably hold a little bit of dry powder for that. Let's see. We also have Bitcoin winner from Odyssey Fort. Hey, welcome. Thanks for joining us. So let's see. I wanted to pull up this. I wanted to pull up a mine just to show you guys the amount of work that actually goes into this stuff. So let's see if my computer is going to be nice about it. Okay, so boom, there we go. So you guys can kind of like Google this, but not only that, I want you to see like the sheer size that goes into these mining operations. Again, I'm still learning as I go. I'm still kind of in an observation point of view, and I just own the basket. I don't own individual mining companies because I just don't have that muscle yet. But you guys could see like there's some mining projects that are really massive and bigger than the data center projects. But the data center projects are also just as equally impressive. But these mining projects for these minerals, when you see these mining companies like this one right here, this is a crazy one. Sorry, I can't make that bigger. Let's see if I can make that bigger. No, I can't. Let's see. But yeah, what I wanted to get across is that when you're looking at these mining companies and you see, they don't even have a mine open, that they're kind of like just fiddling around looking for probably money to fund these projects or what have you. This is what goes into it. They're digging really, really deep, and you guys can see the roads. You guys could probably see some of these houses right here. They're very, very small. Let's see if I can scroll down here. Yeah, you can see how deep this mine goes. I mean, that's crazy. Here are a couple cars, probably some trucks. These mines are massive in scale. So in case you're, again, doing some research into mining companies, looking at what they have, definitely see kind of the mines that they do have or the ongoing projects that they do have. Just something to be aware of. All right. Antimony Corp, UAMI, again, after that article come out, the stock's been just dropping like crazy. Probably around here. Yeah. So again, just 14% on the day. So if you're bullish UAMI, right now it could be a good opportunity to, open a position. Me, for myself, I have not decided yet if I want to really open myself up to investing in individual mining companies that I have not really fully comprehended yet. I'm fine owning a basket, the mining ETFs, I'm fine holding those. But when it comes to these other ones, I mean, just look at these charts. Like this is crazy. Look at this crazy run up right here. 179%, right? 402%, is that going to keep going up? I don't know. Everything seems to be in commodities land right now. All eyes are in commodities land. So we're running pretty lean right now. We're about at 8:48. So we're close to topping the hour, guys. And I am sorry if I've been droning on. The two big takeaways from this whole segment on commodities, there's not enough silver. This is why I think, again, in observations and just from what I watched and on X, that copper is going to have its run probably soon. All right. So let's cover real quick what's going on in AI land. There's a big deal centered around OpenAI. So let's listen in.
Big tech seems to be deepening its bet on OpenAI as NVIDIA, Microsoft, and Amazon may be in talks to invest in a new funding round for the company. Our Deirdre Bosa has more in today's Tech Check. Morning, Dee.
Hey, good morning, Carl. So the money lining up behind OpenAI, it tells you something. Some of the biggest players in tech, they're betting that OpenAI can take back the narrative of the next model cycle. An OpenAI comeback after code red, months of sliding down the technical benchmarks, rising pressure from Google's Gemini. Now, its next model, GPT-6, it's expected in the second quarter. And this is key, it's being trained on NVIDIA Blackwell chips. That matters because Blackwell is supposed to change what's possible at the very top of model training. And just like we saw Gemini 3 flip the narrative and the investment thesis, that could plausibly happen again, but this time in the OpenAI universe's favor. So You're looking at these sort of different universes right here. The OpenAI one is Oracle, AMD, Microsoft, NVIDIA, CoreWeave, SoftBank, the infrastructure that's exposed to OpenAI. It suddenly has a very different setup if GPT-6 does reset the benchmark race. For Microsoft, though, the relationship has become more complicated. It is no longer the primary financial or strategic beneficiary of OpenAI's success. Its biggest cloud rival, Amazon, may be getting a stake through this new funding round, according to that reporting. And Microsoft itself is already diversifying by giving customers more choice over which models they use and making an investment in Anthropic, by the way, OpenAI's rival. Now, you also heard some defensiveness on the earnings call last night. Amy Hood pointing out to analysts the mix of backlog as a glass half full, 55% Microsoft, 45% tied to OpenAI. Now, for big tech as a whole, though, investors are looking for execution, and Microsoft may be losing the street. An hour ago, you guys were talking to Melius's Ben Reitses, who has rated the stock a buy, and he told you that Satya Nadella is playing catch up to products like Anthropic's Claude Cowork, and they need to fix this narrative. So, guys, an OpenAI comeback, if this does come to fruition, change the investment thesis in the AI race as a whole, but it won't be the same boost to Microsoft that it has been in the past.
Yeah, I was talking to Brad Gerstner about this yesterday in Washington, D.C. from Altimeter, is one of the big backers and big investors of OpenAI. Talks to Sam Altman. He showed me a chart that showed the usage of OpenAI ChatGPT versus Gemini, and it was just sharply higher and faster. And I do wonder GPT versus Gemini, and I wonder if that's what you hear too, and how that feeds into the question. I feel like investors are very fickle with how they feel about OpenAI, but you can never quite know because it's not public.
And the metrics are fickle too, right? It depends on what you look at. Like yesterday for that scorecard we were looking at tokage usage, and we were looking at the technical benchmarks. And actually, you see that OpenAI has been falling off a little bit just on those two measures. You're seeing a lot more momentum. And anecdotally, too, you hear about that from people who are building, developers, investors. It's all about Anthropic right now. They feel like the steadier bet. But the point is that it can all change with a new model release. I was skeptical that Gemini 3 would change the landscape as much as it did, but it really did, from the token usage numbers that I'm seeing to the adoption rates, monthly active users, to time spent on each site. So it's just extremely, extremely fluid. And maybe Gerstner is getting ahead of this, right? Because he knows that the next model is coming out. Maybe we are about to see that come back.
So there you guys go. There's a lot of craziness happening in AI land. We have some of the bigger competitors, OpenAI seems to be losing some of the market share, some of their momentum. They had a code red back in December. And then, that was around the same time that they released their latest model. I don't know which model is better. I use, ChatGPT mostly for a lot of my stuff. A lot of my own research and things like that, and automating tasks. I use Gemini sparingly. I don't really use it a whole lot, or sparsely, I should probably say, not sparingly. So I don't really use Gemini a whole lot, and Grok I don't really use at all. But what do you guys think? Which AI has been really good for you guys? I mean, put it down in the chat if you even use AI. So we ran a poll earlier and I totally forgot to check it. Again, StreamYard, I can't see the poll, so I have to actually open up a whole new window. But for the poll, we had, with the pullback in metals, are you buying in now? All right. And 62% of you said, hell yeah, now's a great time. While 38% of you said, nah, I think it'll go lower. All right. So I am still debating myself. I don't know if it's going to go lower or if it's going to rip higher. I definitely want to add to the positions I do have. I'm definitely interested in copper, uranium right now. I'm really interested in those miners. Now, if I'm going to be doing or investing into the actual spot price of those those metals or commodities, I don't think so personally. I really doubt it. Just because I don't want to deal with the tax situation or the tax consequence that comes from it. I'd rather just hold the miners themselves and just, let them kind of play out. Because I mean, when you're looking at, there's aside from like gold miner, silver miner, etc., there's also the juniors. And I don't know too much about the juniors. I know they're similar to like a small cap, like just in equities, very much higher risk. But when they move, they really, really move. All right. So Again, there's SILJ that's out there. That's a silver miners ETF. Again, not something I personally hold. But I'm going to go ahead and end that poll and appreciate everyone who did participate. Okay. So moving on, we had a big piece of news drop. All right. Amazon could invest up to $50 billion in OpenAI in the coming weeks. And this is a huge development because, again, we talked about it yesterday. We talked about how OpenAI is basically begging for cash at this point. They need money. They need a lot of money. They're trying to IPO. They still have to work through some of the legal things because technically OpenAI is a nonprofit. So they still need to work through a lot of the legal stuff, through California's court systems, et cetera. But you have Amazon willing to put in $50 billion into OpenAI. We had NVIDIA announce something similar not too long ago. So let's just take a quick look. Amazon is in talks to invest up to $50 billion in OpenAI. OpenAI CEO Sam Altman and Amazon CEO Andy Jassy have been engaging in the discussions directly, according to a source familiar with the discussions. The details of Amazon's talks with OpenAI are still fluid, and the final total is subject to change. Again, is this more circular financing, investment, etc.? You guys be the judge. All right. So Amazon has pumped billions of dollars into OpenAI's competitor Anthropic since 2023, as was noted in the previous video. All right. A representative for Amazon declined to comment. The Wall Street Journal was first to report the $50 billion figure. So, again, is this good for the thesis that AI is here to stay? What if one of its biggest, contributors, OpenAI / ChatGPT, what happens if they start imploding, right? Again, OpenAI is notorious right now for just burning through cash and not producing anything, right? They made a ton of investments in other companies, took a lot of positions in other companies. They're really tied in with NVIDIA. I mean, what's going to happen if something negative happens to OpenAI, right? Because OpenAI is really at the center of all of this, of this circular financing and everything that's going on in the AI sphere. So if you have a bigger competitor, Anthropic or Claude or anyone else that comes in and takes that market share away from OpenAI, what's that going to do, right? What's that going to do to OpenAI and all the deals that they have with everybody else? We already saw that Oracle is having a really hard time because of how much debt they're taking on in order to build out their data centers. Okay, so they issued out a ton of bonds and they're raising cash. The analysts did not like that. Some will say that, this is forward looking, that, you have to look into the future for a lot of these AI companies or these companies that are going to be tied into the data center play. You have to look ahead. Money's not being made now. It takes you a couple of years. Well, not a couple of years. It probably takes some time to build out these data centers and then, get them filled and then have the customer base, et cetera, before they see any type of revenue. But how much longer can this go on where these companies are making nothing or very little from these build outs before investors start to pull their cash, right? And then it's a domino effect after that. So that's just, again, something I've heard, I've observed on X and on YouTube and everywhere else, that is kind of the going case for the bear case against AI. All right. So we'll skip that video. So Microsoft was huge. All right, big. We're pretty much at 8:58, so we're gonna get this stream pretty much wrapped up here in the next second. Microsoft lost $357 billion in market cap as the stock plunged the most since 2020. All right, this happened. If you're a Microsoft holder, we kind of already covered this a little bit earlier in the stream. The selling frenzy around Microsoft cut $357 billion off the software company's market cap. This is the piece we're going to cover. Analyst Ben Reits said Microsoft needs to build data centers more quickly. All right. And so the all-important growth statistic for Azure and other cloud services came in at 39%, below the street accounts 39.4. 39.4 versus 39. So a 4 basis point difference or 40 basis point difference is what caused Microsoft to have this massive sell-off. Okay. Again, maybe the street is just looking for an excuse to sell the stock. Okay, the company called for about $12.6 billion in fiscal third quarter revenue from the more personal computing segment that includes Windows, lower than the street's accounts $13.7 billion consensus, and the implied operating margin for the new quarter also came up short. Microsoft finance chief Amy Hood argued that the cloud result could have been higher if it had allocated more data center infrastructure to customers rather than prioritizing its in-house needs. All right, so we know that, you know, Microsoft has its own, you know, its own data centers, its own chips, but they've been using it for their own internal testing versus releasing it to the customers, so that the customers could use it for their Azure stacks. So that's also what kind of contributed to them coming up a little short. Again, a little short. If I had taken the GPUs that just came online in Q1 and Q2 in terms of GPUs and allocated them all to Azure, the KPI would have been over 40. So again, Microsoft, I thought had a really good quarter. I don't know why. Again, the street just decided, hey, you know what? Screw this. They're bad, and it's sold off really, really violently, in my opinion. So again, shout out to anyone who got in on the dip. If you did buy the dip, you know, again, it's not Microsoft is not anything that I personally own. I've worked on Microsoft products for a very long time. I'm pretty much Microsoft tired. Okay, moving on. So yeah, we saw the dip for Microsoft. It was pretty dramatic, down 12%. Let's see. We're going to skip the Tesla thing, and let's see, what is this? And we kind of already covered this. All right, so guys, we covered a hell of a lot in this stream. All right, we covered a lot in this stream. Ooh, this is cool. Okay, all right. Yeah, StreamYard, I'm still getting used to it. So with that being said, I'm going to open up the lines in case any guests want to come on board. I'll be here for another 15 minutes. So, you know, we can chat, you know, cut it up, whatever. In case anyone wants to get on, again, this is not, you know, you don't have to. You can get in, talk about what you're investing. If you want to share a message, whatever, you know, fully open to having you come onto the show. But is there any topics, anything that anyone wants me to cover? I think we covered pretty much all of the comments that were coming up during the show. So I hope we did. So MJ Bowhunter says, would paper trading silver become risky as silver becomes harder to deliver? That is a good question. When we talk about risky, you know, what do you mean for risky? If anything, probably the price of silver is going to go up even sharper in my mind. But all it takes is a little bit of something, a little bit of news or something that's gonna have silver drop dramatically. I think, because again, the sharper the incline, the sharper the decline will be. At least that's the general rule of thumb I'm going off of. Let's see. Victor Singh says I can come on and cry. No, it's all good, man. You don't have to. Bitcoin dropping faster than, oh my God. I'm not reading that. All right. I'm not reading that, but you guys can read that. I got to read the comments before I even put them on. Oh my God. Oh my goodness. All right, you degenerates. Is that what happens when you have too much gold? Says Skeptic. All right. Skeptic is you know, one of the channel favorites. Always has those really weird fringe ETFs. All right. He always posts them in the Discord. All right. For Comic, I'm curious about your end game. Where in the world would you like to end up retired? That's a good question. Comic, you always be coming up with these really good questions. I like your questions, man. You always come up with really thoughtful ones. I don't know what my end game is at this time. I really don't. I won't say I'm retired. You know, I'm not, obviously I'm not employed at the moment. I'm kind of just taking this thing day by day and figuring it all out as I go. I love where I'm at right now. Southeast Asia. I'm in Thailand. You know, I could hop over to Vietnam if I wanted to. I could hop over to the Philippines. I could hop over to South Korea, Japan. And I'm naming all these Asian countries just because these are places that I actually want to go. Or if I wanted to, I can head back to Europe or head to Europe and take a look over there. Like, I'm in a pretty decent area. You know, the cost of living is pretty low here. The quality of life is much higher for the same amount of money that I would pay back home in the you know, United States. So in terms of end game, I wish I had an answer. I really, really do. It's something I've been reflecting on. I haven't quite figured it out. Like, what am I doing with the YouTube stream, right? Is the YouTube stream, does it have an end game? And you know, like, I don't monetize my streams. I make no money. I've made literally, like, I don't sell anything on my channel. I haven't sold anything on my channel. I've thought about it, but I opted against it because I'm like, I don't even want to be involved with that stuff. You know, like, at one point, you know, people were reaching out asking for, you know, some type of coaching or mentorship, etc. I did a few of them. You know, they're fun. They're cool to talk with people who are interested in you know, whatever it was, high yield or just investing in general, or just, you know, trying to do a geo arbitrage like me, you know, coming out here to live in Thailand, you know, doing some type of entrepreneurship or whatever, right? But I don't know. I don't want to do that either. Like, I just kind of don't want to. I don't want to be tied to. I don't want to create a job for myself. It's more or less what I'm talking about. I don't want to be stuck on other people's time either. So, you know, in a more personal note, I like to do what I like to do, right? I like streaming. I enjoy streaming. I have a lot of fun doing the streams. I like doing this. Is there an end game where, you know, I could build out this community for this stream, for this channel? I think that's in the cards. You know, it really depends on my consistency and my work ethic and how much, you know, I can be involved in the investing space, which I find is really fun. I like investing. It's a great hobby that can actually build your wealth, right? And being involved every single day. It's something that not a lot of people get to do. So I'm really, you know, thankful for this opportunity. But yeah, like, I don't know where I'll end up. I may just end up back in the United States. I have no idea. I have no idea where I'm going to retire to. Honestly, I don't want to retire to the United States, to be blunt and be frank right now. I just don't want to be in the United States. It's cost of living is too high. It's a lot of crazy crap happening over there. And I'm fine with being over here. Like the snow, I do not miss the snow whatsoever. I hate snow. I've gotten my car stuck in snow. I've hit snow banks. I've almost hit other cars sliding down a damn hill. I know I could move, you know, somewhere like Florida or down south where there's no snow. I get that. I don't even want to do that. But I just don't want to be there. I will say I do miss the seasons though. I do miss, you know, the seasons, you know, 4 seasons, you know, winter, spring, summer, fall. Like, I actually do miss that stuff. Out here, you really only get two weathers or two temperatures. It's just extremely humid and hot, or just mildly warm and to hot, right? Like, it's nothing less than that. It doesn't really get cold over here. But yeah, hope that answers your question. And I do appreciate your comment. The answer is yes to the paper trading question, says Padre. We have too much gold sounds like an oxymoron. Yeah, I guess so. I guess that would make sense. So yeah, guys, I mean, I think that'll wrap it up for this stream. I mean, we covered a lot. And I kind of just blabbed on about kind of where I'm at right now in this weird life, and you know, talking, like I said, I want to really get like a guest on the show that could talk about geo arbitraging, because I think, again, it's a great topic of discussion. It's something a lot of people can attain. Like, you don't need the $4, $5, $10 million in the bank account in order to retire, right? Or I shouldn't say retire. Well, probably retire in the United States. I mean, you probably need that even at a 5% interest rate. I mean, it's shit. You'll probably be just getting by. Whereas outside of the United States, in you know, countries like Costa Rica, South America, you know, Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, even here in Southeast Asia, there's probably some places in Europe. You know, I heard people talk up Romania. I don't know anything about Romania, but you know, like they're achievable, right? They're achievable if you get really good at some type of income, you know, strategy, whether you're doing your own cover calls, doing your own call strategies, doing your high yield investing, doing dividend investing, or trading futures, right? Or you run an online business. You know, you can get by with a smaller amount of money than you would need in the United States. Like, again, for my phone bill and my internet, I pay $30 total for the house internet and my phone. All right. And the speeds, I mean, you guys are seeing it right here. The speed's pretty damn good. So I like it, you know, like, it's so much cheaper out here just to enjoy life and actually get to be a little calm, you know, instead of being in a fast paced, you know, you're stuck in traffic for 1 hour in a car trying to get to a job, and you get to the job and you got a bunch of BS that happens, and then you got to get back in your car and then drive back home stuck in another hour. You know, I called that freaking Audible University, because I was just playing audibles every single day. I'd burn through books, Audible books, because I was just stuck in traffic all the time. You know, so There's my vent. There's my vent for the day. There's my rant for the day. Tradesman, I do appreciate that. I really do, as always. Yep. Don't forget to hit that like button, guys. I really do appreciate it. There's 74 of you right now. There's 45 of you on X and 25 of you on YouTube. So I do appreciate your guys' attention and time. All right, guys. Well, I think I'm going to close out the stream. We covered enough. So outside of that, as always, I appreciate you guys joining me for the stream. Hope you guys got a little bit of value from this. Hope you guys got a little bit of entertainment. With that, I hope you have a great evening, a great rest of your day, wherever you are in the world. And as always, I will see you in the next stream. You guys take care.